discussion for the day on the topic Leadership's Trifecta in the Tech Era: Innovation, Integration, and Influence. The contemporary tech era demands a transformed model of leadership. This panel discussion will explore the crucial trifecta of skills modern leaders require for success, namely innovation, integration, and influence. I'd like to introduce our moderator and our speakers for this panel discussion. I'd like to request all of you to please give them a big round of applause as they come forward. Moderating this session is Krish M., Head of Consulting, MARG Business Transformation Private Limited. He has over 25 years of experience in the industry, in operations, private equity, consulting, and corporate finance. Krish leads consulting at MARG. Please give him a big round of applause. I'd like to welcome you, Krish. Joining Krish on the panel is also Kaushik Das, Vice President and Managing Director of JCPenney India. As site leader, Kaushik drives innovation, leads the transformation strategy, and strengthens the culture that is very foundational of who they are as an organization. Kaushik brings with him over 22 years of global experience in strategy, operations, transformation, customer experience, enterprise programs, and change management. We'd like to welcome Kaushik. Joining them on the panel is also Jiten Bahri, Head PNC Solution Operations and Hyderabad Site Lead at Swiss Re. Please give him a big round of applause as he comes forward. Jitendra has 23 years of experience in the area of information technology and the consulting industry. Experience built working with varied organizations from product, consulting, and professional services, ranging from Big Four consulting, small and mid-sized, to giants like Infosys, Technologies, and Accenture. We also have on the panel Nithyalakshmi Subramanian, Head of Data and Analytics, AMEA. Please give her a big round of applause from Kellogg. Nithya is a seasoned executive with 20 years of diverse industry experience, skilled in leading cross-functional teams to driving growth, customer satisfaction, and performance optimization by enabling digital transformation and empowering businesses in making effective decisions. I'd like to welcome everyone on the panel, and with that, Krish, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. You're all in an ASTEC event, and in case you didn't get it, I think Sindhu underlined it for us. Technology is no longer a spectator sport. You got to be in it, and it's not just being affected by it, you got to be a player in it. Obviously, you're in ASTEC for that reason. This panel is thinking not about our adoption of technology or how we play with technology. What can a leader do, or what can we expect a leader to do when taking this technology to the rest of the world? The rest of the world which is doing other stuff. They are doing it with ways of work that already work for them. Their KPIs are green, orange or green. They're doing a good enough job. They got great performance appraisals. We are sometimes coming to them with a new way of work. And what we're hearing in these days is these ways of work are not targeting any one aspect, one task of mine. They change everything I do. They change the way I have been successful thus far. How do we, in that context, make sure this changes, the innovations that we come up with actually land and stick well? What do we do to prepare, equip, support people to land the change? Which brings us perhaps one step back to ask, what is it that we're trying to get done over here? Again, we used the phrase innovation culture a few seconds back. And Jiten, I'm going to start with that conversation with you. One of the benefits of this panel, just so you guys know, these panelists are all having experience that spans many organizational contexts, while having expertise in their own chosen field. So, Jiten, broader perspective in your career, as you have tried to bring in innovation and perhaps even start the culture or create an innovation culture, what role does the organization itself have, the organization's context, the organization's nature have in the story? Over to you.
Oh, sure, Krish. No, thank you so much. And I'm so glad we are talking about this trifecta, because these trifecta sometimes we miss when we do our day-to-day business as usual. And Sindhu, I think you spoke about innovation from school. Actually, I'll really put some thoughts about innovation culture, how it needs to be there, and actually going to share some example with you as well. But I think before I even go to innovation culture, and I know this crowd is the brightest and the smartest, and they know what innovation is. I just want to highlight very important part of why innovation right now, why we are talking about innovation so much. It has been spoken like thousands of years. I would say at least hundreds of years the innovation is happening. But we are actually a stage of innovation where it is so fast. And I think it's rightly because without innovation, we actually can't live or survive in the way the problems are coming to humankind, the problems are coming to our industry. So I think no question on that, but I think it's very important that innovation is always connected to one, problem, second, customers. Because at the end of the day, we all are in business and making money, commercialization. By saying that, let me spend some time on the innovation culture. I think culture needs to be there not when you join corporate. And that's why, Sindhu, I want to highlight your point, that it needs to go from schools. Kids, they need to really understand that innovation is not something one fine day you start doing it. It is basically a culture which you need to build and inculcate from starting. I actually have a opportunity to speak in one of a school in Hyderabad. My actually son was doing something and he said, "Dad, can you talk about innovation?" I said, "Oh, wow, interesting." He's in 12th grade and I said, "Okay, why not?" So I went there. They were doing a hackathon and basically they want me to talk about innovation. And I think that's where I realized that this is the thing which India needs. We don't need to inculcate innovation when we go to college or when we join corporate. That's the beginning of the culture. That's how they'll start thinking that, problems are what we need to solve. The second part of innovation culture, which I really want to highlight, is customer centricity. I think end of the day, you can create as many innovation team as a right team or a left team or a center team or a up team or a down team. But unless they are focused on customer issues, unless they are embedded, and we were actually having conversation before this meeting also, session also, unless they are embedded in part of customer interactions, customer problems, seeing what they want to solve, you cannot do innovation. You can create, and interestingly in my company, recently we started something new and it was done by an innovation team, which is actually a right team. And then we realized that, whatever they have done, the context of customer is missing. I think that's where I want to highlight that, one, we need to solve problem. Two, we need to have a custom centricity. And third, the culture. And that has to start much early. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jiten. I hope you guys noticed that what Jiten has done is broadened the scope dramatically. He's saying that innovation is not just about that particular task, process, group of people that you're touching. Think bigger, think broader. You got to connect that innovation to what the organization is all about. You got to connect it to the organization's belief systems that deliver value to a customer. So go there, right? Nitya, that brings up a broader question, and I'm going back to my calculus days, right? We talked about integration and we talked about area under the curve, and Jiten has just broadened the area under the curve. He's saying now touch the whole organization, not just the one part of it. In your experience, Nitya, as you go through that exercise, I know that in your role, you're all about analytics and data. Some of your changes are going to be changes that they asked for, they being the rest of the organization. Some of the changes are things that you think are accessible, doable, and some parts of the organization say, go and do it, right? How do you make sure that those innovations actually get integrated with how the organization now starts ticking?
Absolutely. That's a wonderful way of looking at it. In my current role as head of data and analytics in my organization, I get this unique opportunity to implement all the three aspects of leadership trifecta, which we are talking about here: innovation, integration, and influence. And Jiten also spoke about the importance of innovation culture in an organization, right? In order to kind of bring positive impact to the business outcomes, to the society at large, right? So innovation is super critical and it needs to be inculcated right from the childhood and from the school days, right? And when we talk about integration, it could be equally, if not more important than innovation. Because, we might come up with really innovative solutions, innovative changes, by making use of all the cutting edge technologies which are available right now. But the point is, if we are not able to integrate this innovation, these innovative changes in our organization, then in fact, if you think about it, we are not able to go and kind of achieve the intended business impact or the business outcomes. Now, if intuitively, integration, the challenges which we face for integration are mostly because people aren't ready to change, right? We are essentially inherently a change-averse species, if I may say. Why look outwards? If I have a 6-year-old at home, right? If I tell her, you got to do this, she will say, why should I do? What is in for me in that, right? How do I benefit out of it? Similarly, if I tell her not to do something, she will say, why I should not do. So always people don't want to change, and they want to do only if there is an absolute need to do that, if they see a value in that, right? So that's the kind of change management that we have to do, at home, in the organizations, in the society, right? And when we are doing change management, the real aspect that we need to touch upon is what is the benefit that the stakeholders of the change are going to get out of it, and are they invested in that? There should be a sense of ownership towards that change. So in my organization, this is what I mean, not just in the current role, even all the previous roles that I've played. The way I try to bring this change in effect, right, this change management or this successful integration of all the innovative changes that we do, is to ensure that all my stakeholders are involved in the entire process of innovation right from beginning, right? It may be futile to kind of include them only at the stage of, when you're landing the innovation. Obviously, they'll be resistant, as we are inherently a change-averse species, as I mentioned. So, involve them right at the stage of ideation, when you're kind of going through all the, I would say, discovery phase, right? And then take them along, so in the entire innovation journey, so that they know what is in for them, right? And they have the sense of belonging and ownership as much as you do in the success of that solution or that innovative change.
Thank you, Nitya. That makes a lot of sense. And what I'm hearing you say, connecting the dots, is Jiten says use a big stick called customer. It's a good stick. Bring that into the story early in the game. And what you're saying is bring the guys who are going to say no early in the game, so that they at least had enough chances to say no before the damage was done. And once it hits the big game, you're still successful. Right? I want to circle back on two things. So Jiten, I will come back to you on, so when do you know the culture is stuck? And same thing for Nitya, when do you know its integration has happened? But before we go there, Kaushik, my question to you is, the way Nitya set it up, she said they, and they is an amorphous group of people, right? And we often think of influence as one magic dust that we can sprinkle over. We can have this one conversation and do something charismatic, and magically the person is flipped over. Is that how it actually works? How does influence actually land? Is it a 360-degree storyline? Is it a longer journey? Could you shed some light on that?
Thanks, Krish. First of all, good morning, everyone. Glad to be here. So they is a big piece out there, right? So probably what I'll try and do is just demystify they a bit, kind of segregate into components. And for many of us who are part of big global organization, they can be, kind of segregated into, let's say, the offices or the centers in different geographies, out of which one probably we can call our home office, and then the different centers. Like I represent a global capability center for JCPenney at this point, and then we also have other different offices. Now, when we talk about this magic, there is some method to it, but then there is a whole bunch of madness as well, right? So it starts pretty much from what Jiten mentioned, like ensuring that whatever you're focusing on, as let's say, we want to innovate on this direction, it has to be, again, it has to be customer-centric. It cannot be something that we find that, it's the trendy thing today, and we're going to take it and we're going to make something about it. But at the end of the day, if it's not going and impacting our customers in a positive way, it probably doesn't have a space. So I think that's probably the first point where influence starts. And all of us in this room have a role to play to understand, even before we get into the nitty-gritties of what we are doing it. Does this make sense, right? Is it going to make sense? Is it going to elevate the experience of our customers? I think that's the starting point, and that's the start point of influence in a very micro level. The second point of influence, wearing my, let's say, a GCC leader hat, would be to ensure that we have a strategic alignment. Of course, first box checked that yes, it's customer-centric. The second part is it also aligned with our strategic priorities as an organization? Which means, do we have the right set of focus and resources that I'll be able to get it? Is the priority right? It might be a great thing for the customer, but is this the right time to do it in our overall strategic roadmap? So I think that's the second piece that comes into it. So that's the first layer of influence where, irrespective of global or local, we have figured out that, yes, this is what we are going to do. It aligns with our priority, and the first box of influence checked. The second point comes that now that we're on the road, I need enablement to, kind of carry this track forward. And for that, it's more of a collaborative influence across my peer group, across different sections of the organization. I need resources, I need skill, and mostly for, many of us who have, a center in a different geography, very far from the business, where we may or may not have a direct line or kind of a visibility of what's going on day in and day out. Context plays a very important role. If we are trying to change the experience of our customers who's probably in a different geography, which is the case in our case, we do need to be having a good amount of context along with the skill and with the know-how of doing it. So these going forward, assuming that we have already checked the boxes that Jiten mentioned, Nitya spoke about integration, where we have already identified who are the fence sitters, who are on this side of the fence and who are on the other side. So these two big spheres of influence taken care of. The third part is, as we go through the iterative process of making those solutions, and I'm assuming technology solutions, available, there is a very curated, thought-through, go-to-market approach internally. That's very much important. Okay, once I come through these milestones, who do I need to keep updated? How do I gradually bring my, the folks who are on the other side of the fence on this side through the results? How can we demonstrate value through the different milestones of this change that is coming? Overall, at some point we are talking about the three aspects, innovation, integration, and influence, but at some point they all are having so much of overlap that the lines get blurred at times. And then finally, once you have, the solution out, coming from, let's say, a POC to a concept and finally going up to an implementation, sharing what we have done, what is the learning is, what are the wins, and celebrating together. I think all of these positively impacts the culture that, Nitya was talking about. And again, going back to the customer satisfaction, the centricity, but also internally, there is a huge elevation in our internal experience as well of the entire set of, associates, team members we have. The other piece is also valuing how you innovate. General connotation is when we talk about innovation, mostly we think about something that will have a tremendous amount of technology breakthrough. There's going to be a big sci-fi revolution that's going to come in the organization, and we will implement a solution that's going to change the world. But organically, as we heard Sindhu and as Jiten was mentioning, innovation starts at the desk, in my mindset. Right? So how do we in an organization reach out, cater to, and foster the thought of innovation at everyone's workspace? Even if I'm just building a small bit of macro to change my life and my life of my customers, that's also innovation, and that should also be taken into account and encouraged.
Thank you, Kaushik. 2-3 thoughts, and I'll tell you why I'm smiling in a moment. So you did hear Kaushik say this needs to be project managed. It's not going to just happen. It's not going to be a series of meetings that you set up reactively. This has to be a very intentional, data-driven exercise from A to Z. He's also saying that this, again, needs to connect back to the customer storyline. I'm smiling, Kaushik, because somehow I sensed that you're finishing off by saying you would like innovation pulled by the employees. You want to create a culture where they're going to say, yes, innovations here, yeah, yeah, I want to change the way I want to do the work. And that's not just employees, that's employees at any level of the organization. And that seems to, that's wishful thinking, right? At least at the point where we are. And given what Nithya said, that we are naturally change averse, or at least we are success friendly. We want us to succeed the way we succeeded yesterday. Most employees are going to ask, why is the thing that I was doing yesterday not good enough for tomorrow, right? So with that in mind, Jiten, back to the culture of innovation part. Courtesy how Kaushik has now spread the storyline wider, that culture of innovation is known, you can't centralize it. You can't have one group alone preaching the culture of innovation. And he's opening up the doors between him and Nithya. They're saying, get everyone in the game early in the story. Now what would culture of innovation mean for the organization, including those who are in the middle of the value chain? They can't see customer benefit directly. They are responding to efficiency, they're responding to risk, they're responding to regulatory agencies, not necessarily customer benefit. What do you suggest?
So I think before I go a little bit detail on that, I actually, there are three words which I'm sure all of us always, we all know that. Why, what, how. And I want to actually give a very interesting example, which I think maybe a month ago I was watching a video, which actually gives an example of Apple. For me, Apple is probably one of the most innovative companies in probably last 20, 30 years. I don't use Apple, that's a different story. But I think what I was completely taken aback with the statement made there is, why? We actually changed the status quo of the world. What? We actually create devices which can actually help you day to day what you do. How? And by the way, the outcome of that is a Mac, which you might like it. I think that's where you don't want to go and buy Mac. You actually think about why they are creating it. I think that's where I feel the innovation plays a big role. How does the culture comes in? So the reason I ask these three things is because there is a lot in this why, what, and how to create a culture of innovation. And when I talk about innovation of culture, sometimes, as you rightly said, Krish, that people who are in the front, either they are salespeople, either they are business development people, or are the people who are sitting in front of customer and listening to them, they might not be able to give everything back to what is happening in the middle, in the back end of what people are doing and working. I think that's where this question again, so I typically, when I'm having a conversation with my team, anything they want to do, I say like, why? Why do you want to do that? What's going to happen if you're going to do this? I think that thought process, if you keep doing it every time, again and again, repeatedly, what will happen is that next time when somebody is going to start thinking about any new idea, this will become part of their journey. They'll think all three of it. Is it really right thing I need to do? And I think you rightly mentioned, see, it cannot be an idea, wow, let's get it done. No, it's not going to happen. You're going to create something, you're going to throw it out because there is no why, there is no what, and yeah, by the way, you know how to do that. So I think it's important we understand these three important words, which are so, for me, it's like a super critical for every single transaction, tactical thing I do with my team to ensure it seeps in their day-to-day work.
Fair, Jiten. While you have the mic, I'm just going to push you a little bit and ask, how will you know you have this culture of innovation? We agree there's no KPI there, but what's your measure? And Nithya, just so you know, I'm going to ask the same question about integration. It's coming your way. Yeah, Jiten.
Yeah, so I think this is something always kind of difficult answer to give. How do you measure innovation? There's no KPI here. How do you, is that what you're trying to ask?
Yes, because my fear is we have great measurements for project success. We don't have great measurements for impact, right? Success, change success.
Exactly. No, absolutely. And I think this conversation always happen when I'm doing performance management. Somebody who is going to be measured on innovation, somebody is going to be measured on something else. I think for me, innovation is always about outcome. What outcome I'm generating? Is that outcome on the top line? Is that outcome on the bottom line? Because at the end of the day, when we are working with our customer, it is absolutely crisp and focused in terms of what outcome we are generating. Because that's the only way I can measure how innovation is effective, how the culture is seeping in every single individual who is creating things day in, day out for our customers.
Thanks, Jiten. Nitya, so then, again, connecting the dot between what Kaushik said and what Jiten is saying. Kaushik is saying, generate the pull, make sure there is a pull, and the pull for the right reasons. We agree that means the pull is not going to be the same from different parts of the organization, right? And Jiten points out that it is going to be outcome-based, and we agree that different projects might meet the outcomes at different points in time. Some changes might be the long play, and again, the degree of success may not be the same, right? So how do you measure or how do you pick the point where you say, I no longer need to work on innovation with business? It seems to have landed. It's stuck. This is your new way. How do you know that?
This is this is kind of a very intriguing, I would rather say, question, because the moment we land something, right, and we are sure that it is integrated into the stakeholders or the customers' ways of working, right, into their entire ecosystem, it doesn't stop there, right? Innovation is not something which is a point-in-time event, right? It's a continuous process. I would rather say the right mindset towards innovation is the mindset of a growth mindset, right? And, the moment we see that something is working and integrated well, we do not want to kind of say, okay, it's success, it's done. We keep revisiting because, end of the day, it's not just the technology landscape which is changing, it's even the business dynamics it's changing, right? What is important today in terms of organization strategy may change tomorrow, right? Something else might be important, and even the larger dynamics around sustainability development goals, ensuring that all that we target are towards sustainable development, things like that are also having tremendous amount of implication on our innovation cycle, right? So we need to keep revisiting what we have delivered in order to ensure that we incorporate all the latest technology innovations, we incorporate all the changing dynamics in the business and in the larger ecosystem, so that we keep re-innovating, right? So, and every time we do that, we see an incremental alignment with the repivoted business outcomes, incremental alignment with how we want to position the outcomes in terms of sustainability, right? So in a nutshell, innovation is not a point-in-time event. It's something which is continuous, and that's how I measure, how we are innovating, by bringing incremental impact.
So if I heard you right, you're saying that, okay, Jiten sells the story saying customer impact, but what you will measure is the innovation you did in the project.
So if the idea is to measure how innovative your organization is, right? So there is no particular KPI that, innovation X percentage. Innovation is a subtle way of seeing how you are reinventing every time, right? How much of a growth mindset or innovative attitude, innovation culture that you are bringing into the play. And one way in which, a very, I would say, a very people-centric way of measuring innovation is to see how many new ideas people have come up with to solve similar problems, right? And in those ideas, what are all the aspects that they have taken care of, right? In terms of technology, in terms of the larger socioeconomic factors, etc.
Thanks, Nitya. Between what Jiten is saying and what Nitya is saying, what we can figure out is what's tangible and visible is the work we do. That's countable, measurable, that's demonstrable. We can also count and measure people's behavior, which is what Nitya is saying, right? I can see the changed behavior. I can see them contributing more ideas, right? The catch, however, is both of these these are individual elements that you're measuring. It's not necessarily converted yet. I didn't hear an organizational level measurement. So now, Kaushik, coming back to the influence story that you're pitching, right? As you're trying to get stakeholders to say yes, the path of innovation is not going to be easy when it's a pipeline of innovations. There are tons and tons of innovations coming our way, right? So as we are bringing the stakeholders into the conversation, And we know that we can't necessarily measure it in the terms that we are calling out upfront. How do you get the influence part done?
Interesting. But before I get there, and that's kind of tactical, one of the things, we'll go back to Jiten's initial point, which says why, right? And that takes us back to the customer centricity. I think the measure, see, innovation essentially is a change that's changing the world around us, right? A quick question, back to the entire group today. How many of you remember the device called pager? Right? It came somewhere in between the old dial phone and then the early, kind of big, the Motorola handsets, right? And that was an innovation. That was a new breakthrough. So as Nitya was mentioning, it's a continuous process. If we would have stopped it there, right, we wouldn't have had, our iPhones or, the big Android phones today. So it is a continuous process, and we are a generation which has witnessed this entire journey from those big old dial-up phones till, we are looking at AR, VR kind of, devices today. So I think the continuous process is about reshaping the experience, again, connecting back to that customer sits in the middle. And that propels the value that we can, the storytelling that Sindhu was talking about, we can bring it back internally and say that, look, this is an effort that has resulted into a change of experience externally and has also created a mechanism internally to learn how can we streamline and smoothen the process of more such innovative ideas coming through. So taking the whole aspect of integration, as we take an idea through its process and implementation, we learn a lot of what not to do. And one of the big responsibilities of us as leaders is to ensure that as we do this process again and again, the mechanics of it, this is more of like how the machinery works, try and make it more simplified and make it more bottleneck free, if I would say. The moment it's there, and then the moment there is a organic participation of the group, because remember, this is the group, irrespective of whichever department, whichever part of the organization they are witnessing the value of their product in the society outside, and that it's making a change. It itself is a driver, saying that yes, what we are doing is driving a value, and hence let's do it more, do it right, and do it faster. And I think that is a big change. Again, overall, we are talking about change, and change is a big concept here. So the overall change propels that how we get people together and how everybody is excited to kind of contribute, because bottlenecks will be there, but at a tactical level. But once we are convinced of the change that is impacting on the society outside, and that it's also as a business driving our top line, I think it's all about how smoothen we can make the mechanics of it.
Thanks, Kaushik. So Jiten says, get a vision out, make sure there is a vision. There's a bigger picture here, the why, the what, the how. The organization is able to sing to that same rhythm. Nitya says, as you do it, look at what the employees are doing. Is this actually landing? Are people actually changing their behavior, suggesting improvements, challenging the way they did it now and saying, I want to do this differently? And Jiten rounds it off, Kaushik rounds it off by saying, that groundswell between what the organization is pushing and what the employees are pulling, between that, you're going to have impact, which is probably well past the organization, and that's the success you point to. And in most cases, once you point to the early successes, it does snowball and people will come along, right? Makes perfect sense. And now it's a question to all three of you guys, which is, this is with the people to whom we do the innovation. It's a poor choice of words, but just bear with me. We're going to do innovation to them. What do I need to do with my own team? What qualities do I need to bring about in my team to give them the patience, to give them the skill set, to give them the ability to do these 3 I's? You're leaders, you're going to be doing this leadership trifecta, but in many ways, your teams need also do elements of this. What do you look for in your teams? What are you creating in your teams for that to continue, to perpetuate?
I'll take it first, right? So one of the things that I have seen very strongly in this space, and this is very consistent across whichever groups I've been a part of, is first of all, there has to be a disruptive mindset. There has to be a mindset where, and this is not limited to a leadership drive alone. It can be tops down, it can be bottoms up, it can be organic, whichever way it can happen. But there has to be a disruptive cultural element to the culture that Jiten was mentioning. So that's one. And the second is the resilience to go through the iterative processes of, kind of, because as we spoke about integration, and there can be the no-sayers, and how do we convince them gradually? So I think having that resilience that, yes, we try out, it doesn't work, we go back to the whiteboard, we try out again. So resilience is important. Having a disruptive mindset is important.
So I think there is no one mechanism, I would say, Krish, to get these things through to our team. I'm a believer of storytelling. I'm a believer that humans are very easy to understand story, but obviously you have to tell the story correctly. So when we talk about a team which is young kids starting from 23, 24 to like 35-year age, that kind of team we are talking about, storytelling, personally, my choice, works always very well for me. One of the big story which has happened in past, which has shown the results, which has shown all innovation, integration, and finally influence, you need to pick out those stories. You need to give them live examples. See, it's like, when we talk about teaching kids something, you can keep telling them 100 things, but they will only do what you are doing, as simple as that. It's very fundamental in humans. It's not complex. We make it complex. So I'll actually talk about a very interesting story in my last 2 years working with this organization. There was a big problem statement existing in the US market from a claims value chain of insurance. We have been talking about that, we can create something, there is no competition, we can bring certain partners, create that. But the whole thing was not accepted to anybody. They were not accepting it. And we were like wondering why it is not happening. I think the only way we could able to start kind of put that innovation into action and start integrating is when we start reaching each geographies. Guys, this is what we are thinking. Do you think it's going to make sense for you? And by doing this repeated time, they actually start influencing the stakeholders. The stakeholder suddenly is hearing from their people like what is this system you're talking about? This sounds very interesting to us. And that's how the whole turning happened. And when I tell this story to my team, they believe in that because they've seen it happening. So I think for me, storytelling is the best way you can actually push this culture.
Yeah, I might be repeating a lot of the points which were spoken by Jiten and Kaushik. But this is the way I want to look at it, right? The entire innovation life cycle, if I may call it that way, the leadership trifecta, which is innovation, integration, and influence, right? It's just like going out there and winning a war, right? And you cannot win a war, of course, without an army. And what is even more difficult is to have an army which is completely disorganized. It is not aligned with a goal, right, that the leader has. It's not sure, every person in the army is not sure why they are fighting that battle, right? So similarly, right, in case of in the context of an organization, in this entire innovation cycle, the team is very important. And what is even more important is that the team, everybody in the team should have that shared vision, that shared purpose, and they should know why they are going about fighting that battle, or they're going about implementing what they are implementing, right? And it's also very important that each of them gets that clarity as to how their individual contributions come together in order to serve the larger team purpose or the larger organizational business goal. Because only then we will have that sense of belonging and the sense of commitment towards achieving that particular common goal. And once we have this clarity built in the team, it's very easy to get the rest of the essential ingredients towards success, which is commitment, growth mindset, challenging the status quo, right? Which means that, you keep innovating innovating, right? So this has in my case proven to be time and again very useful, that I always create that clarity as to why everybody's contribution is important and how it fits seamlessly well into the larger, the puzzle or the Lego of delivering results. Apart from that, I also want to share one more thing, that, of course, army is important, a very focused army is important to win a war, but you also need allies to win a war, right? And when I say allies, in our organizational context, these are the partners whom we work with, right? So you talk about, since I come from analytics team, right? My partners are the business teams, the functional teams, the IT teams, right? So, and the customer success, there are all of these people, and also the vendor partners, right, whom we deal with. So these are all the people who are my allies and whom I need to kind of collaborate with, integrate with, and all of us need to have a shared vision in order for my strategy to be successful.
I think I just want to add something on this, what she mentioned. I don't know how many of you have heard this term, cooperative. I think it's the competition and cooperation. I think what is happening in this changing dynamic world is that whole cooperative thing has come up. So actually, that's just remind me of that word, how it is important to bring innovation not only within your teams, but actually have a collaboration outside that also. So I thought I'll just add that point to it.
Makes perfect sense. Closing thoughts. What's one watch out for this advice that you would give all these leaders who are hearing all about innovation, who are hearing you almost give them a blueprint, right? Bring your people along, tell them the right stories, make sure they have a disruptive mindset, make sure they're prepared to build those alliances and take others along. What's one watch out for this comment that you would share with them as we bring this conversation to a close?
One watch out is to kind of, for the leaders to see that, they break organizational silos in a way that they don't appear as, people who command. They should appear as allies, right? Because, again, falling back on my experience and the role that I play, usually I have very, a lot of difficulty in landing a concept or landing a change or a strategy, because I inherently have to deal with stakeholders who have got conflicting priorities, right? So, but when I go to them, with a proposal to standardize something, proposal to kind of, implement solutions at scale, always I am, I always meet a resistance, because every stakeholder and every market is very, very different, right? It's highly fragmented ecosystem that I work with. So in a lot of cases, we feel like, we are having to deal with multiple conflicting priorities, and we become a bit confrontational, because we also have to drive an agenda top down of scale and return on investment and standardization and things like that. So always, just whenever you're confronted by this kind of a situation, try to act like allies of the stakeholders. Try to just ensure that you give them the deep sense of, value that they look out for from you, and at the same time, take them along the journey so that they appreciate why standardization is important, right? So just be allies to your stakeholders.
Very quick, for me, stick to the problem. When you're working on innovation, integration, influence, have a very strong hold of the problem. You move away from a problem, everything goes for a toss. Keep thinking that you have to solve the problem. I think for me, that always works.
Very quickly, adding to Nitya and Jiten, just adding on to both, keep it simple, of course, and communicate. I think there's no alternative to that.
Thank you so much, Kaushik. Just so you guys know, NASDAQ 2024, we're going to have an eject button that will close out the moment the time is up. For the moment, to bring this amazing conversation to a close, what you've heard is the innovation, no matter how good it is, it's not going to sell itself. You need to help the organization understand its value. You need to help the organization understand where it fits into the battles that each function, team, unit, entity is fighting. And that is going to happen going backwards first with those strong alliances that you create. It's also going to happen because you created that mindset, that disruptive mindset with your employees. You got them to tell stories. You got them to associate with the teams, empathize with the teams that are going through the change, and possibly even change the change, and then come back with something that's meaningful for them. Organizations don't change, individuals do. And as we bring the change to the game, please keep in mind that if individuals are not bought into it, it's just going to feel like moving through jelly. With that thought, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I'd like to request Rajat from NASSCOM to please present a small token of our appreciation to Krish, Kaushik, Jitendra, and Nithya for that brilliant session. Please give them a big round of applause once again. We'd like to thank Krish for chairing that session. We'd also like to thank our speakers, Kaushik, Jitendra, and Nithya.